sleeves and shout about it at the top of their lungs, but I think there's far too much shouting on TV already. I think viewers want facts and information, and armed with that, I think you're all smart enough to make up your own minds. For all the talk and the yelling and the chatter on TV news, it doesn't seem like we're really hearing differing viewpoints or being encouraged to walk in other people's shoes. I'm not much for giving advice, that's Bill O'Reilly's job and he does it very well, but I think it is important that we not close ourselves off to the viewpoints of others, that in this age where we're fighting a war against extremists, which is also really a war of ideas, I think it's important that we understand the ideas of our opponents as well as we understand the ideas of our friends. It's interesting, covering wars has changed a lot for reporters since I started doing it about 15 or 16 years ago. All the things that reporters like to do have been very difficult to do in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. In Baghdad today, the list of what you can't do is a lot longer than the list of what you can, and they give it to you as soon as you get there. You can't eat in a restaurant, you can't see a movie, you can't hail a taxi, you can't go out at night or stroll down the street, you can't stand in a crowd, you can't stay in one spot too long, you can't get stuck in traffic, you can't neglect to speak in code on your walkie-talkie, you can't go anywhere without armed guards, even now, communication devices, IDs, a Kevlar vest, a multi-vehicle convoy. You can't forget you're a target. Other than that, they tell you it's not so bad. At the airport in Baghdad, we're met by a squad of bodyguards. Most major networks now provide their own security, and CNN, like most, have a private security force. Our guys are former British Special Forces officers, a few American Special Forces officers, but they work for a private company. And you drive with them in a convoy, speeding fast, surrounded by guys with Kevlar vests underneath their shirts and very thick necks. Their necks are usually about as thick as my thighs, and their machine guns are at the ready. And if you're not careful, it's very easy to get trapped in this security bubble. And the truth is, it's very hard to break out of that. And things look different when you're looking at them through bulletproof glass. It's a distorted image, and you have to be aware of that when you're covering a story. You can't allow your own fear, your own insecurity to alter the things you see. A quick story, years ago in Baghdad, we used to stay at the Palestine Hotel. And one morning our security guards, one of my first trips there back in, I guess it was 2003 or so, our security guards warned us of a possible attack that they had gotten some word of. And then this guy, he was an American Special Forces guy, former Special Forces guy, came up to me and said, you know, we have this report that some jihadists may come door to door looking for non-Muslims to kill in the hotel, that they'll infiltrate the hotel. And it had happened in Saudi Arabia a couple of weeks before, so it wasn't all that of an outlandish idea. And he said to me, don't worry, you know, we have a plan. I said, oh, okay. And he handed me 2 wooden 2x4s. And I was like, okay, what is the plan? He was like, yeah, use this to barricade yourself in your room. I was like, that's the plan? That's our high tech, this is the best, the greatest minds have seen anything come up with. It's just 2 wooden 2x4s. He just kind of shrugged and laughed. I should point out, we no longer stay at the hotel. Several months after that, our team decided that it was too dangerous, and a short time after that, 2 trucks laden with explosives were driven into the hotel and blown up, and we now stay in a private compound of our own. But I've had the honor of reporting from Iraq and Afghanistan numerous times, and been embedded with U.S. military in both places and operated independently of them as well. And I do think it's critical not to just depend on the embedding process to see what's happening in the country. You have to go out on your own as much as possible. And it's only by seeing a situation from as many different angles as possible that you can really understand what's happening. Sadly, the cost of reporting in both countries right now, because of security concerns, is so great that fewer and fewer media companies are willing to foot the bill, so the bureaus dwindle and the stories go untold. Now that we're all in this terrible juncture of the economy, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have seemingly disappeared from the headlines. Afghanistan, however, as you probably know, is at a critical point. Next door, the violence in Pakistan has escalated. In the last several weeks in Kabul, we've seen a new strategy, which is small groups of Taliban attacking government installations, creating havoc. It's the same strategy we saw in Mumbai over Thanksgiving, used to great effect. And the fact that Kabul itself is no longer secure is just one of the many troubling signs for Afghanistan. The sheer number of critical issues facing President Obama is frankly staggering. Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the economy, healthcare, climate change, the list goes on, and the stakes truly have never been higher. I interviewed him a few weeks ago. I know he was here also, obviously, for the debates before the election. I interviewed him a few weeks ago in the Oval Office, and it was my first time in the Oval Office to interview a sitting president. And I gotta say, it was a little surreal to walk in and see the Oval Office and see President Obama sitting there and have him say your name. It was on the day that Tom Daschle withdrew his nomination to be HHS Secretary, and so certainly it was not a good day for the Obama administration, and while the President was under enormous pressure, he appeared remarkably even-keeled. And I don't know if you know this, but Mr. Obama likes to keep the Oval Office very warm. One person actually told the New York Times, it's so hot in there you can grow orchids. And it's true, you can actually feel the heat emanating from the Oval Office before you actually even walk into the room. And like within 2 minutes of sitting down with the president, this bead of sweat sort of developed and started going down my face. And about 5 minutes later, I was drenched in sweat. You probably haven't given this much thought, but of course the president's sitting there cool as a cucumber. And it reminded me that it's remarkable how little politicians sweat. And I know this is a minor point and not important, but I digress for a moment, please. I noticed that actually when I was moderating a Rock the Vote forum back in 2004 during elections then when John Kerry was running. And all the candidates, there was all the Democratic candidates on the stage. There was Al Sharpton and the whole, I don't know, there were like 40 of them, I think, at the time. And all the candidates, none of the candidates were wearing jackets because they wanted to appeal to the kids. And you know, the kids love it when you don't wear the jacket. But it was amazing because over the course of this 2-hour debate, which got to be heated and, you know, it was under lights and stuff, not one of these guys was sweating at all. And I was drenched like Albert Brooks in broadcast news. And I've become convinced that I think since the Nixon debate, candidates have had their sweat glands removed. That's either that or Botox, but it's remarkable to me. Covering this past election was fascinating. Also frustrating, I should say. I moderated 3 debates during the primary season, 2 Republican debates and 1 Democratic debate. And it's interesting to be on the stage with all the candidates because the pressure is palpable. Were any of you here able to be here for the debate that President Obama had here? Yeah, I don't know if you can sense it from the audience, but when you're on the stage with these candidates, the pressure is palpable. Each of them is so eager to talk. They actually kind of try to stare you down to get you to call on them. This is when, especially when there's like 10 of them on the stage at one time, because they all know they're not going to be called on for every question. And no one had warned me of this in advance. I kind of wish like Wolf Blitzer had taken me aside and given me a heads up. But all the candidates have different sort of, it's like a poker tell. All of them have different ways to try to get you to call on them. Hillary Clinton just stares at you, and that's John Edwards would kind of motion with his little finger and kind of raise an eyebrow. Dennis Kucinich would wave his arms wildly. Very effective. Mike Gravel, I don't even remember him. He would just scream at you. And that was not. And then when that didn't work, his wife would come over and scream at you. Very quickly. But it's odd. It got to the point where you actually cannot even look at the candidates in their eyes because if you look at them, then you're locked into like the death stare and you have to call on them. So you end up kind of looking at a position sort of around their navels, which is actually very oddly uncomfortable. It's just the last presidential election between Bush and Kerry was the first one that I covered for a major network, for CNN, and I was surprised by how carefully orchestrated all this stuff is, in particular the debates. I mean, I'm sure you got a sense of this, but just to get then President Bush and Senator Kerry in the same room, the power players of both parties had to meet and hammer out this 32-page memorandum of understanding. And from what I researched, apparently it documented everything from the height of the lectern that they were going to have to the kind of pens and pencils they were going to have available to them. It even ruled on the ambient temperature of the auditorium. Apparently the Kerry people wanted the temperature no higher than 70 degrees because unlike most politicians, John Kerry apparently does sweat. And the Bush people wanted the temperature higher than 70 degrees because John Kerry sweats. It's interesting that when you see politicians up close, it takes a little getting used to. Sometimes it's like visiting the Hall of Presidents at Disneyland. You know, they look remarkably lifelike up close. And it's like animatronic versions of themselves. I don't know if you sense this, but there's this exaggeration of gestures, sort of even in the way they move. I don't know if you've noticed this hand gesture that they do. I've become obsessed with this, and once you notice it, it's all you can look at. Because I've never actually seen a human being use this hand gesture, but every politician does this. And I think it's because they have focus groups that tell them they can't point. Only Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor can point. Get away with it. But everybody else does this, and so now I'm sort of trying to get most people to do this, kind of take it away from the politicians. So feel free as you go forward in class, today and tomorrow, when you're making a point, go like this. And I think you'll do very well. It's interesting to me though, the most honest thing about the debates is this post-debate spin room. I don't know if you had one set up here at Hofstra, I'm sure you did, because they had them at all the debates. And there literally is a sign that says post-debate spin room.